What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Redbeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and we have Jake Powers here today, a special guest for you guys from Grizzly Coolers, and he is the director of marketing. Guys, you've seen me use Grizzly over the last couple years. They're absolutely my favorite cooler, and they're made here in the U.S. They're America's cooler company. And that's
right.
the big thing that we want to talk about, because there's a lot of great coolers out there. There really are. And you might feel a little saturated. You might feel like maybe you can go to Walmart and pick up a cooler or whatever. We're going to talk about why you're going to want to get into a Grizzly cooler, what makes them stand apart. But even before we get into Grizzly, we're going to get into that in the conversation. I want you guys to get to know Jake. The camera doesn't do him justice. He's also wearing a hoodie that's probably a little oversized. Jake is jacked and tall. So I don't know about the tan part. You seem a little pale today. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, I'm coming out of seasonal depression here in the Midwest. Yeah.
But so we got Jake here, and I want you guys to get to know Jake a little bit better, because he's just an awesome human being. He's behind he's worked in the marketing business for a very long time in the hunting industry. And you might have seen him around different shows, but essentially I want you guys to get to know who this guy is and why he's chosen to work with Grizzly at this point. So with that being said, Jake, who are you, man?
Wow. Well, I appreciate that introduction, man. Again, Jake Powers. I live in Indiana. Grizzly is headquartered in Iowa. I am remote here in Indiana. I get up there as often as I can. But who am I? I'm a husband. I'm a father of two feral boys, and 2 dogs and 19 chickens. We live here in Indiana, what I would consider my dream, which is 20 acres in the middle of corn and bean fields. But like you said, been around the space for quite a while. I like to say that I was born in the outdoor space. My dad was a Grand National turkey caller. Back in the heyday of the turkey calling championships. They're still huge, but back in the day that was the thing. Born into that world, and then went on to play college football. After that, went into what I thought was going to be a pretty fulfilling career in medical sales, which once we had our kid, it was like, the gone Monday through Friday and catching up on emails all weekend wasn't going to work out anymore. So I've been blessed to work with some really great people and great brands in the space, and really blessed to be at Grizzly now.
Is that a typical? I've heard a lot. Maybe it's just podcasts that I've listened to recently, but there seems to be a lot of either college football players or NFL players that get into medical sales. Is there some recruiting process that happens where they're you guys are big and intimidating?
I think to me, I think, and I took part in that as in my role in the management side. Once I got in the management side of med sales, was you're looking for people that are young, they're determined, they're hungry, and college athletes, they're managing a lot. You just see them on Saturdays when they're playing football, but they're managing a full caseload when it comes to their class schedules and practice schedules and lifting schedules, and for me, eating schedules, because I had a hard time maintaining the weight. But they're maintaining essentially 2 full-time jobs in college athletics. So and when you're doing medical surgical and you're asking them to get up, be on call at 3 a.m. to go into a hip replacement or shoulder replacement, it takes a different kind of person to do that. And I think also the monetary end of things, they're led by the carrot, of course.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can understand that. That's definitely a big deal. But no, I just kind of laugh, and maybe it's just fresh on my mind because there's a couple of, I can't remember their names obviously, but I just know their story was football, college and NFL football, and then they get into medical sales shortly after.
It's fun.
I didn't realize
it's competitive.
That.
It's wildly competitive, and I had fun doing it, and I think it taught me a lot of really quick lessons in adulthood, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I still use some of the things I learned in those roles now today, in a management style position of managing people. I still think that managing people might be the hardest job in the world, not for the bad things, but to get the most out of people. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, coming from that world, it was kind of like going from one team to another. So had a
Yeah.
lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And then you just kind of brushed over college football. Where'd you play?
Indiana University.
There
Yeah,
you go.
we're coming off a banger year. It
Yeah.
wasn't quite like that when I was there. So I like to ride their coattails now. I'm an old guy. Like, yeah, we were awesome. No, we weren't great. We weren't great.
Yeah.
Playing in the Big Ten as a kid that I'm now living in my hometown of,
Mm.
not very many people, and playing in the Big Ten and getting to play in places that I were beyond my wildest dreams. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I don't, I mean, saying whatever university, if it was a D1 college, and especially in the Big Ten, which is now, I think, the Big 12 or something like that, now that they keep mixing things up.
15, 16. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Big 12 that has 20 teams in it. But,
Yeah.
but, playing in the Big Ten, that's always been one of the bigger conferences,
Hmm.
and that's definitely a huge deal. And I'm going to take a stab at this. Were you defensive end or linebacker?
Linebacker. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
actually went as a fullback and didn't like to avoid collision, so they moved me over before my first season even started.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, again, guys, big guy, right? The camera's not doing him justice.
No.
But actually, he's got his camera tripod set up at 6 feet, and he's still looking down at it. No.
No, the
And then,
ADD. My feet are moving. Normally, I'm standing up, but I get out of
yeah,
frame too much when I'm moving around. So I'm making myself sit down for this.
he's got one of the little pedal bikes under his desk so he can
Yeah.
keep his feet going. That's awesome. And then there's something I do want to hit on real quick too in your background there. What is that quote on your wall there?
This came from a new friend of mine at First Form, Mr. J. Algier. I'm sorry, Cody Klein and Jay Algier, but built the kind of life that says "I told you so" without having to say a word.
Yep.
Yep,
No, that's
and
awesome.
it's I saw that talking to Cody Klein at First Form here not too long ago, and I'm like, I have to have that, and he sent it to me.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so a little bit about Jake here. Obviously we figured out you're a college athlete,
Hmm.
sales, now in marketing, love the outdoor space. What drew you to, after working with various brands, doing what you do best there, what drew you to Grizzly coolers? Why Grizzly?
Man, it's a loaded bag, honestly. I've been a big fan of the brand through, various circles within the space. I think that's the first thing in the outdoor space that people should understand is there's a lot of brands in our space, but man, the relationships are so much bigger. It's so much fun to be a part of the outdoor space, just in general, just because of the relationships you build. And one of the relationships I built along the way was with the director of national accounts, which is Isaac Gitzinger, and I call him the mascot because I think he's been at Grizzly since the day it started, and you know. Had a relationship with him, and then ultimately their newer vice president of IRP and Grizzly, which IRP is the mothership side of Grizzly where it was born. And I would say the first thing that popped out to me is the uniqueness of it still being a family-owned business. It's an American manufacturer out of Decorah, Iowa. Which the easiest way to explain that is if you drive north until you start hearing the Minnesota accent and it gets really thick, you're in Decorah. But it's just like the hometown I grew up in, and the fact that it's family owned in a world of conglomerates and appeasing stockholders. This is a family-owned brand that has started from nothing to where it is now, and you know, product-wise, it's a premium brand. You can't beat, you can't bust, you can't break a Grizzly cooler. Not to mention the cooler, but the blinds. The hunting
Mm.
blind side because they're made exactly the same. So looking at it holistically as family-owned American manufacturer, premium product, was there opportunity in the marketing side to grow its footprint, broaden the horizon of places. Because when you're, pardon me, when you're talking about a cooler, anybody can use a cooler. My 65, 67-year-old mom I think she's in that range. She can use a cooler. My 7-year-old actually takes our lunchbox, to school. Anybody, the demographic of a cooler can go anywhere. But building a culture around a brand is in my opinion paramount to a brand or a cooler company in general, right? Because we're talking about an inanimate object that's not sexy. It's a box that keeps things cold. We have to build a culture around it. And what was nice coming in or having the opportunity to come over here is the culture is pretty much there. We own the
Mhm.
hunt space as an American manufacturer and a family owned business. We set our guardrails as to things we can get behind. And I think that's pretty unique in today's space of PC and being scared to ruffle the feathers of this person over there, or that person over there. Um, we're setting our morals and our values. And to me, that was kind of the last check mark I needed to come over here.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's awesome. That's cool that it's more than just a job. You really enjoy this. You see a lot of potential with, they make a really good product, but
Hmm.
also wanting to remind people, again, it's a US made product. It's made here.
Hmm.
And why you want to use that cooler over again some other brand that you might pick up at Walmart. Um, I've gone through plenty of those coolers in my life, and they definitely don't hold up, and they don't
Hmm.
hold the temperature, whether hot or cold, whatever it is that you're needing. Obviously, most people think of coolers for cold, or if you're a hunter, you want to be able to get your meat down in temperature and stay that way, but also keep it dry, which we're going to get into a really cool feature, something that recently launched.
Hmm.
That will help keep your meat cold but also dry, because sometimes it sucks getting back after a long drive and realizing your meat's wet. Then you have to hang it, pat it dry, whatever, and you're trying not to lose
Yeah,
any meat because of all the water it's soaked up and all of that. So there's some great
sure.
things there. And I will say, this last, was it Thanksgiving, I don't really brine my turkeys a lot. I don't do that a lot until the last 2 years I've done it just so I can cook the turkey on the Traeger, which turns out
Hmm.
fantastic. But this last year I used I don't remember, I think it was a 15 quart or 20 quart
Hmm.
to brine the turkey. And I put a trash bag in it. You don't have to, but like I didn't want to have to clean it out afterwards. So
Yep.
put a big black trash bag in there to line it, and then brined the turkey in there, and it turned out fantastic.
Oh
So,
yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
good features, a lot of ways to use it.
No, I think I've got that same 20 that I use. It's my resting cooler. I call it that because after putting so many
Mhm.
briskets and pork butts in it, it just develops a nice, fatty ring in there. But hey, a flavor, right? Flavor. It's like some people don't clean their Traegers,
Yeah.
which I highly advise cleaning because then they become incendiary devices if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
don't get a grease
but
trap going.
no, nonetheless, it also Grizzly coolers work great for resting your meat and I think that's the most important part of doing a pork butt or a brisket, right? So, no, you nailed it, man. The reviews. I mean, every Monday we get the marketing team gets just endless amounts of 5-star reviews that are coming through, and some of these stories are amazing. We got one last week. Can't make this up. We had a guy in Arizona that shipped a Grizzly 75 packed full of elk meat to his buddy in Virginia. It got lost in shipping, and so he actually DM'd um, our Instagram. He DM'd and said, "Hey, do you guys have any ice studies knowing how long this could be good or this could be
Mhm.
really bad?" We're looking at 8 days, and on the ninth day, the meat got delivered, and can't make it up. Again, this is a real life review. His buddy opened the cooler and everything was still rock hard frozen. Because there's ways that you use the cooler, and if you ship a bunch of frozen stuff and there's not a ton of air in the cooler and it's packed to the gills and you keep that thing shut, air is really the enemy. No, especially in a Grizzly, that 75 kept everything rock frozen, rock hard frozen. We get reviews like that every Monday that just all come piling in from customer service. So yeah, it's from a product perspective, can't beat it.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's awesome. I know, my personal experience with it, definitely holds ice really well, and got my meat back from any of the hunts I've used it on, just in great condition. But
Hmm.
that's definitely an extreme story. There's also another story, a movie I'd call it a video that came out about a guy surviving a hurricane in a
Yeah.
450 or a 400.
Yeah, that was my first day on the job. I can't lie about that. We had seen. I actually shared the story before I had started. It was a couple weeks before I had started with
Mhm.
Grizzly, and the Coast Guard had put out a video of them rescuing a guy standing in a cooler in the ocean. And not kidding you, man. Day one, Jeremy, our VP, comes walking and he said, "I can confirm it was a Grizzly 450." And we're like,
Wow.
"Oh," he goes, "What do you want to do with this?" I'm like, "Somebody's going to Florida." So we sent a team down. We found the guy. Really, really cool story, man. Joe is salt to the earth, salty dog, lives on the dock, fixing boats, fishing. He's a commercial fisherman. The long and short of that story is he went out, wanted to make one last trip before the hurricane hit Tampa. He was just outside of Tampa, and he went out, short trip. I think a short trip for those guys, like 3 days, by the way. And he went out, and on his way back in, I think the prop got stuck in a crab line or something, and it stalled the motor out. So he went under the boat, cut the line free, but it had fried his alternator. So he was dead in the water, and took a 25 or 30 footer over the stern. And he started going down with the boat, deployed his life raft. It gets connected to the boat, started pulling him down with it. He hops out and something hits him in the back of the head, and it was the 450. So he literally climbed in that thing. On all the coolers, they've got rubber latches, and instead of closing it on himself, which that'd be a little scary,
Yeah.
he actually pulled the latches in with him, so he was holding on, and rode that hurricane out for 17 hours, and it had taken him out 30 miles. So I think when he had stalled the boat, he was like 15 miles, but he had gone out 30 miles to sea. And the long and short of that story is Coast Guard went out to find him, followed the debris field. But when he was in the cooler, his eBird, his beacon, wouldn't go outside the cooler. The insulation was preventing him from getting a signal
Wow.
out. So he heard the helicopter go by, he opens it up, and they finally get it. And when they came back in, they saw him and rescued him. And yeah, it's a cool story. Thankfully, the Coast Guard, it's a small world out there, folks. But when I had shared that story, a buddy of mine from Danville, Indiana, middle of nowhere, 40 minutes west of Indy, texted me. He lives down near Tampa, and he's a chef. But he said, "Hey, man, the guy that filmed that or shot that video goes to my CrossFit gym." I'm like, "Can I have his phone number?" So immediately connected with that guy, and he shared, I mean, it had to have been 20 different videos of them rescuing that guy. So that's probably half our rescue content in that video. But you can go on YouTube, look up 17 hours. It's on Grizzly Cooler's YouTube page, but really cool story. There's a GoFundMe for that guy because he lost everything
Everything.
in that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a house. Like, he lived on those boats. So when that boat went down, he lost it all. So we've raised some cash for him, and the family's been great. And he's got all the coolers he could ever need. But nonetheless, yeah, that just tells you it's hurricane tested now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's awesome. Those unintentional tests are always fun.
Day one, yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
So this is what I'm jumping into. Okay.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that we can necessarily certify them as a safety vessel, but just saying,
A small boat.
doesn't hurt to have one on your boat. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Add a prop to that, and there you go. You got your first bass fishing boat. Just a little
that's right.
trolling
And
motor.
just put a motor on it.
No, that's awesome. So that was your first day on the job, and you've been there for a little bit now, and you've been
Mhm.
again at various different shows, and with Grizzly, I guess before
Mhm.
we dive even more into that, I do kind of want to touch base again. You mentioned you've got 20 acres, which that sounds like a dream to just about anybody. You've got 2 kids, and you've got a wife that's also, she does recipes and does an amazing job of what she
Everything.
does. So you guys
Yeah.
are pretty busy.
Busy.
Pretty busy
Yeah.
couple there. And then again, you mentioned the chickens and the dogs. What, I guess, I don't picture Indiana as a destination. Maybe you guys have created it that way.
Yeah.
You know, to where no one wants to go there.
Right.
Unlike
It's a
unlike
flyover. Of
Utah, it's like everyone from California is coming to Utah now because everyone figured out it
course.
was a good place, other than
Of
all the
course.
Mormons.
Yeah.
Guys, that's tongue in cheek there, guys. I'm Mormon, so I can say that. But no, the whole Indiana, like I've got my uncle lives up there. I know a couple people up there. It's a beautiful place.
Mhm.
But why did you choose Indiana as your destination and you've called it your dream spot?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was born and raised here. Um, Yeah, I guess you could say I was a little bit of an indentured servant growing up. My old man, he shared our phone number with every farmer in this community. So if it was a hay bale that needed picked up, if it was a tractor that needed to be driven, whether it was bush hogging fields or putting up hay bales or
Hmm.
straw bales, it was. I would say when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate what kind of upbringing I had. I had a lot of different, I guess you could say, uncles. But I feel like you learn a lot. And now having two boys, we lived in the suburbs. It was really convenient when they were super young, babies, having stuff really close by. That convenience is nice. But I kind of wanted to, give them the same upbringing I had, where they can go run and, like I was telling you before we started, run and play in the creek for as many hours as they want, catching crawdads or going on little excursions and adventures and building stuff out of whatever. Giving them that opportunity, I think, is really important for them to have uh, an imagination, which is hard now with all the screens, right? So when I say that we bought this place for our boys, it was to the point where I think we were looking at the place and we lost both of them. Like,
Mm.
had no idea where they went, and they were running around the creek. And so, we lease 500 acres south of here, from a family that I grew up with, and it's. I never thought that I would say I'd move back to my hometown, but now that we're here, man, it's so nice, just to know that we can call. We just had tornadoes roll through a couple days ago, and to call your neighbor and say, "Hey, is there anything you need? I got the chainsaw ready and the side by side gassed up. Like, what can we do to help?" And they were calling us before we could call them to do the same thing. So, it's nice. The big draw here in Indy is Indianapolis 500.
Yeah,
It brings in 3 to 4 million people a year in the whole month of May. It's not just a 1 day race. It's a whole month of activity, and so being close enough to be able to participate in that. My family's still here. Man, it's like I said, the more I talk about it, it helps me to appreciate it even more.
good. Oh, that's good. Well, we won't harp on that too much more because I don't want people to ruin your dream place. But but that's awesome. I've considered heading back home, and there's not a lot as far as outdoor space back where I grew up. But if I went to Western North Carolina or something like that, yeah, I could see eventually maybe even retiring there or something along those lines. But there's so much here out west that just I feel like it's easier to go back and hunt whitetails and turkeys and maybe black bear than it is to come out here from the East Coast to hunt, elk, deer, pronghorn, all that stuff. So
Yeah. Oh,
not
don't
to
get me no
mention,
don't get me wrong. I do like visiting your guys' place too.
yeah.
Yeah, the
You're
tags
like, but
are the
I
tags are
like
a
my
little bit
20
more
acres of
difficult.
paradise.
Yeah, the tags are a little more expensive on your side of the
Yeah.
world, but
Yeah.
it is still fun to chase your guys' critters too.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so let's dive into Grizzly here to talk a little bit more about what Grizzly's got going on. As far as some of the coolers that I have, I really like using the 75 for kind of family trips, weekend trips, etc. I also really for hunting trips, and I've got a hitch that I throw on the back of my Tacoma that I throw the 165 on. That 165 is, I mean, you could throw a full elk in there. If you cut off the head and the antlers, you could probably fit a full elk in there. And maybe the hoofs and stuff, take those off. But I put a full elk in there this last year, quartered out, and there was still plenty of room left in there. Kind of my go-tos for when I go hunting, I like to have that 20 quart hard
Hmm.
sided with the hard handle and the 165 as kind of my main cooler. That way I can dump ice and water out if whenever I do kill an animal, I can throw that in there. And then, like I said, the family trips are usually that 75. Obviously the drinkware. I've got this thing on me all the time. This is one of my favorite little cups. I'm not a coffee drinker, but this keeps me hydrated as far as water. It fits great in cup holders and such in the car. You know, what
Hmm.
what would you say? What would you say as far as the more popular coolers, and then kind of what you recommend to people? If someone were to come to Jake and say, "Hey, what do you recommend? I've got the budget for maybe 2 coolers and a handful of other things from you guys, maybe some drinkware or whatnot." What would you say this is what I want for the Western guy that maybe goes like me, goes camping, but also is out in hunting and wants to make sure the meat gets back nice and cold?
Having some connectivity issues here. Oh, 1 second. Let me make sure we're.
Lost Jake there for a minute. All right, we're back. Jake had to pause for a second and go figure out his answer. No, I'm kidding. His internet crapped out on him.
Yeah, again, I live on a farm, right? So yeah, at
Yeah.
times we have some fun little internet issues. But the question was, what would I recommend? And I get this question quite a bit actually because um, we offer such a wide variety of sizes when it comes to coolers. Not to mention our backpack coolers as well, or I'm sorry, our soft side coolers. And I think the sales marketing guy would say, you can never have enough. You need one for every, scenario. But for me personally, what I rock with on a daily basis in the bed of my truck is a Grizzly 45. I call that kind of our working man size cooler. It's big enough to where if you had a group of people or a party or a cookout or whatever, it's big enough to have to be able to pack a bunch of drinks in. But also, it's in the back of my side by side if I go out to the farm and put in some work out there. So I think the 45 is kind of your middle ground. If you are hunting, big game, and you know that you're going to be, packing a deer, an elk, whatever the case may be, a cape and a head, right? It's really important to keep that cold so the fur doesn't slip. 100 or a 165 is definitely the go-to for that, because if you don't have one big enough, you're kind of up a creek. But I would say the everyday use, in my opinion, is that, like you said, the 20 fits in your truck, in your vehicle. And our line of soft side coolers, our Drifter line, which is ever growing, ever changing. We have a Drifter 24 backpack that
Hmm.
I think any mom or dad that's got kids that are in sports, that's the go-to, because you can, it's got shoulder straps, it's got pockets for your storage, and it's got room for the team snacks. Or like my son, Jonathan, you and I were talking right before we hopped on here. My son was just diagnosed type 1 diabetic, and he has to have snacks. We have to have snacks at all times now for the rest of his life, to bring his blood sugar up. And so the Drifter line has become actually essential for us now. So I would say, depending on whoever's listening to this and wants to know what size cooler to get, I would say what is the most practical. Um, and then for those scenarios, like you're hunting big game, if you're hunting elk, deer, bear, whatever the case may be, and you know that you could pack that thing full, it's better to have than not have not. If you're spending the kind of money you'd be spending on tags and travel and everything that goes with it. But it's kind of a not really an exact answer, but I would say be practical, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And that's something that, again, you have to figure out, what you need and whatnot. But with the bigger coolers, and we talked about the meat storage and
Hmm.
keeping things dry but cold. There's something that launched recently, the meat shelf, for the bigger coolers. The 75, the 100, and the 165 have a meat shelf. So kind of walk us through that, because there's little. If you have a Grizzly cooler already, awesome. If you don't, you can go look up some pictures online. There's little slots in there already built in that you can have. Um, you guys make cutting boards as well, the divider cutting boards, right? And so it's made out of that material similar to a cutting board. But now you guys have added the meat shelf to it. So talk to us a little bit about the meat shelf.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. So I didn't mention this part and why I come to work for Grizzly, but um, creating solutions to everyday problems when it comes specifically to coolers is something that's beyond me. Our R&D team is world class, because what I walked into were things that I didn't even realize were problems, but had been sent to our customer service team. Have you guys ever thought about that? Or in the case of the meat shelf, believe it or not, we actually we found the problem on social media. People were actually creating their own meat shelves, and in doing so, the goal for them was to keep their meat dry but cold, or their perishables dry but cold. Last thing you want is, something you've spent a lot of money and time to acquire, soaking in water that could be, bacteria riddled. So, um, Jonathan, as you mentioned, right, the plastic that we use, I lost you again.
Well, it looks like the internet might have cut out a little bit more on there. We're gonna wait for Jake to hop back on here, but the meat shelf. So I'm gonna have, if I haven't already put out a video on it, I will soon, and I'll link it down below somewhere. But the meat shelf is pretty sweet. All the features that Jake was going over. It was brought to their attention by a guy that just created kind of his own and brought it back to him. And then, they worked with their manufacturing and how they do processes. And I'm going to do a video on that. So I'd highly recommend checking that out. If I haven't already put the video out, which I probably will have by the time this goes out, then definitely, check out the link down below, or maybe I'll put it, I don't know, figuring out how to do it somewhere in here, to show you guys how that meat shelf works. But it is a pretty sweet feature. So we're gonna pause here for a second and see if Jake can get back on with his internet. Yeah. All right, guys. So these are the benefits. See, I think Jake's doing this on purpose so no one moves to Indiana on a 20-acre farm up there. He's
This is ridiculous.
But so yeah, we were talking about the meat shelf, and
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure what all ended up getting recorded, but run through it again for us real quick, just kind of the highlights of it. And again, I mentioned, guys, I'm gonna, if I haven't already put out the video on it, I'm gonna be putting a video out, and I'll link that somewhere in here. I'm figuring out where to put videos, but I'll link it in there so you guys can see the meat shelf kind of in more in depth. And then snag one for yourself, because you're definitely going to want it whenever you're going out on a hunt.
Yeah. So before my internet so rudely interrupted us, the meat shelf was a answer to a problem that we were seeing. We actually found it on social media. Believe it or not, people were creating their own meat shelves. With things they could find at Home Depot or Lowe's or in their backyard. And our goal was to create something that was safe, effective, but also answered that, or created a solution to that problem. And so what we did was we took HDPE plastic, which is culinary grade plastic, like we use with our dividers or our cutting boards. And we wanted to create the solution of, you guys have invested a lot of money in that meat or the perishables. It could be, going on a camping trip and you've got all your food stored in there. You want to be able to keep it the right temperature, but also not give it a bath in a bunch of slurry, bacteria-riddled water. And so, again, created that solution by whittling down our dividers, creating a shelf system that is perforated that allows water to seep through. A lot of guys are into wet aging meat now, and so that creates an opportunity for you to do that as well. Just pull your drain plug, you can put ice on the bottom, put the shelf in, put the meat on, and you can keep it that temperature. Other people will fill the cooler up completely with ice, allowing it to drain through, and your meat not having to sit in the bottom of all that ice. So it kind of suspends really your perishables, whether it's meat or food or whatever items in there, and just keeps it out of that slurry of water.
Yeah, for sure. And all the stuff, again, you guys are making in-house, and you've got, like you said, it's culinary grade. I don't want to say, it's not plastic. What's the official term?
HDPE plastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's culinary grade, so it's good enough to cook on.
And that goes the same with our coolers as well. Believe it or not, even our blinds are made from the same material.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm just trying to think of other things that something else too, guys, that you can use coolers for. Now, they might not be the exact same height as a step-up box from a different company if you're into step ups. But if you're building a home gym and you're taking, bits and pieces and putting it together and trying to find ways to have items that have multiple uses, that 75 and that
Mm-hmm.
165 or even the 100 quart cooler do a great job as a step up. They're pretty sturdy. I use the 75 pretty frequently. You throw a backpack on or a weight vest or something, and you do step ups on that 75, and I'm telling you, like, your legs will hate you the next day or two.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No
it'll
question.
work. So if you're kind of on a budget trying to string together a good home gym, that's something else that you can use. Dual purpose, essentially train to get out in
Yeah.
the woods or up on the mountain, but also be able to use it to take out for camping,
Mm-hmm.
for hunting, etc. So that's another good use for it as well.
No question.
Yep.
Yep. Throw the Go
Trying to
Ruck
think of
pack
something
on.
else here.
We've
What's your
we've done
favorite
shed.
drinkware?
Drinkware items, man, it varies in our house. It could be our 32-ounce grip cup. It could be that 20-ounce maglet that you use. Um, we're a CrossFit family, so we're always on the go, back and forth to the gym. So our line of water bottles are big. Are you kidding me, dude?
All right, guys. Looks like we might have lost him again. So, we're gonna
So
wrap
frustrating.
this one up, and I might have to have Jake come back on a little bit later in the year because there's some exciting things happening here in 2025, and I want Jake to be able to review those. We'll go over them as far as review them, go over them with you guys as they're coming out, as they're launching. I will say keep your eyes open, and of course we've got the code Redbeard for anything on Grizzly's site that you can use a discount code for. It's 15% off with code Redbeard. So I highly recommend, again, my personal preferences are either that 45 or 75 for camping trips, for family camping trips. And then of course the 165 is my go-to if you have room for it in your truck or you have some kind of trailer hitch or something along those lines. That 165 is kind of the do-it-all. You can put your food in there for while you're out there hunting. You can put your drinks in there. And then of course the meat whenever you're on your way home. You definitely want to be able to have it somewhere stored. I recommend the meat shelf as well. I'll leave all that linked down below, but you go over to Grizzly, use code Redbeard, and you'll be able to save some money and pick up one of the best coolers out there. My favorite cooler. Trust your camping food, meat, storage, shipping stuff if you need to ship things, and definitely go grab yourself a cooler. It really is America's cooler, made here in America. They don't shy away from the hunting community, from the outdoors community, from the fishing community. Highly recommend it. And who knows, it could even save you from a hurricane. With all that being said, I appreciate Jake coming on here to discuss a little bit more about Grizzly. And again, look forward to seeing you guys out there having success and getting out camping and doing your outdoor stuff with a Grizzly cooler in your truck or your vehicle. Have a great one, guys. And like I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.